Let's go to Ukraine and talk to Joseph Lindsley. First, let me ask you, Joe, about the attack in Odesa. And Russia claims that is retaliation for the Crimea bridge attack, correct?
Well, Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. If you look at the timeline, yesterday was the day that the grain deal brokered by the United Nations and Turkey expired. And that deal allowed Ukraine to ship grains and produce from the ports of Odesa and Mykolaiv, the very same ports that Russia attacked last night, or actually in the early hours this morning. And so once again, when we look at that, the explosion on the Crimean bridge from October of last year, and then the following Monday, there was a major Russian attack on Ukrainian infrastructure. And then now we see this strange explosion on the bridge, and then the next day, or just about a day later, the attack on the two port cities of Odesa and Mykolaiv. But it seems the real reason Russia is clearly showing that they no longer want this grain deal to continue, and so now they're cutting Ukraine's ports off from the Black Sea and from exporting grains to the world. The African nation of Kenya said they feel betrayed by this. So many nations relied upon Ukrainian grain. There were 6 Caliber cruise missiles launched at that beautiful, lovely seaside city of Odesa. Air defense seemed to largely work, but there was still damage. A church was damaged. Part of the port was damaged. Several houses and critical, like an industrial complex. And then there were 25. Russia sent 25 of the Iranian kamikaze suicide drones over both Odesa and Mykolaiv. And so clearly this seems a response to, or it seems a definitive declaration that there will be no more grain deal allowing Ukraine to export through the Black Sea.
I'm confused about something. A week or so ago, Putin said that the Wagner Group simply does not exist. And today there's news about the first convoy of Wagner troops arriving at the Belarus base, and at least 2 more on the way. Is Prigozhin back on the scene and in Putin's good graces?
In Russia, truth is it's whatever you want it to be on any given day. And so it's all a unicorn. And so whatever they say, we can never take seriously. We don't know if he's using, Wagner to set something else up in the future, to control Belarus. We have no idea. And so I think the attitude here is generally to ignore and not pay too much attention to when Putin makes statements like that.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very confusing. I was watching this documentary over the weekend about Prigozhin and the Wagner Group, and it seems like he has alienated not just Putin, but all of Putin's top generals and military commanders. I don't understand how the guy is still alive.
Well, maybe he's not. It's hard to know. Sometimes people even wonder, are there body doubles for Putin? It really is that, there's no free press, and it's really hard to know, in Russia. And so it's really hard to know the truth there. What we do know is the reality of Russian destruction. And, looking at the attacks on the ports last night, and I was reflecting today on, everything I witnessed at that polygon, which is a Ukrainian term for a training camp for demining. And it is the evil goes to such a tiny, like a small micro level. They reconstructed a modern Ukrainian village to help guys train when they go to recently liberated places. And, you really have to, everything can be booby trapped. And I saw examples of actual Russian booby traps they left behind when they were, sort of fleeing as Ukrainians advanced. And there was a container of protein powder that was mined. They killed a Ukrainian who opened it. They put a cigarette butts behind a holy, like an icon, and it looked like trash, but it was attached to a tripwire that would cause an explosion. Teddy bears can be mined, sofa cushions, and it's, and so in this training camp, they put the dummy mines there to make sure the deminers, or the sappers as they're called, are absolutely aware of every single step. I would have been blown up 6 times yesterday as I walked through that house, because there were everywhere you look. And one of the instructors, as he was showing me around, he said that his country house is a popular thing to have in Ukraine, at Dhaka, just a small cottage outside of Kharkiv, was occupied while he and his wife are in Kharkiv. And when he returned to his Dhaka after liberation, the whole house was mined. It took an incredible effort to demine it. I don't think I'd ever want to go back into such a place, because it could be something small that you might find many weeks or years later. But nevertheless, they have confidence in their demining abilities. But there are some truly sinister mines. Like there's this thing called the spider mine that it detects human vibrations, and using seismic vibrations, it can tell when a human being is approaching versus a rabbit or a deer. And once you're within 5 yards, it detonates. And so it's extremely hard to, you can hide these things incredibly well. A lot of them are made out of plastic, so they can evade metal detectors. If you can spot them, you have to use something like a fishing rod to remove it. And then there are these sinister, and they're sort of homemade mines that are grenades in trees in these beautiful forests of pine and birch trees. And the Russians put grenades in the trees, and they attach a fishing wire and a hook. And as you're walking through the forest, if that hook catches your shirt at all, you're done. And these, I asked them, how do you remove these? They say it's almost impossible because you can't detect them. And so these forests where Ukrainians used to love to go hunting for mushrooms, even kids, and grandmas, these forests are off limits for, forever almost, and it really, the level of evil to such a micro level of, how the individual soldiers, when they're in someone else's village, the destruction that they leave behind is pervasive.
And as I understand it, one of the problems is the Russians have so many of these mines and grenades and artillery. They were stocking up for about the past 50 years, and unfortunately, that's what Ukraine is up against. I know, Joseph, you have some audio from a friend of yours in Nikopol. Tell us about this.
Yeah, this is my friend Michael Poperechnyuk, and he was once the kickboxing champion of Europe. And now he's been, since 2014, since the Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine, he's been fighting corruption in his hometown of Nikopol. And that city, its name means Victory City, and it's on the Dnipro Reservoir, which was, it was like an inland sea, and now it looks like a desert after the Russians destroyed the Novokakhovka Dam. And Nikopol is across from the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. So as Mike was recording this video message to the audience here, you can see that abandoned sea, and you can see the nuclear power plant, and you can hear that haunting air raid siren in Nikopol, which sounds like nuclear apocalypse because it very well could be. And important to note that Mike told me that in the months before the Russia's full-scale invasion, he got many sinister phone calls from anonymous Russian speakers telling him just to stay quiet until the Russians showed up. And as Mike and others there have told me, the first weeks and months of the full-scale invasion, the mayor and many city leaders in Nikopol were quiet. And maybe they got these phone calls and they were maybe, hoping, or they were figuring that the Russians were going to show up. But Mike and sort of that younger generation of heroes of Maidan, of the revolution, never were quiet. And they resisted from the very beginning. And so the city's never been occupied. But every day and night, the Russians shell it. And Mike's always an optimist. We call him Mayor Mike, even though he's not the mayor. But I've never heard him sound so serious about the situation there in the city of Nikopol.
My name is Michael Poperechnyuk, and I'm in my native Nikopol city. Behind me is the biggest nuclear power plant, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which Russians occupied at the March 2022. Now we hear alarm. It means that they prepare for new attacks. And if we see after their attack in Kakhovska hydroelectric station, we don't have water at all. So it's a terrible situation. No water, almost every day shellings, and the huge threat from Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which Russians can just explode in this time again. So we have to be united. We stand, we defend, and we are doing everything for our common victory. We made our regular humanitarian mission, so we fed more than 1,000 people, and thanks for our partners, we can do it more than 15 months of the war. So it's difficult, but we continue to do it. So just remember, we have to be united, we have to win, and we have to do everything for our common victory. Special for my friend Joe Linsley and Freedom News.
Joseph, can people see that video at UkrainianFreedomNews.com?
Yes, if you go there right after we finish, I'll post a video. And also at UkrainianFreedomNews.com, I have a notice about a fundraiser and an event that's happening tomorrow at Stonebridge Country Club in Aurora. There's a Chicagoan, Jim Gamush, who's listening right now, and he was in Lviv volunteering at the Frontline Kitchen. That great place and makes meals for soldiers, 20,000 meals a day. Tomorrow, July 19th, 5:30 p.m., open to anyone who can join. Stonebridge Country Club. Jim will be telling stories about his trip to Ukraine, and he'll be raising money for that Frontline Kitchen. So greetings to anyone from Aurora and to Jim and anyone who goes to that event tomorrow. If you go to UkrainianFreedomNews.com, you can see that video from Mike and from Nikopol, and you can see information about the event tomorrow.
Great. Hope it's a huge success. Thank you, Joe. We'll speak tomorrow.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Well, which side are you on? Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?